You probably think of your eyes as little video cameras, just passively recording whatever's in front of you. But what if that's totally wrong? Today, we're going to dive into some fascinating science that shows how your brain isn't just seeing reality, it's actively predicting it and, in a very real sense, building it from one moment to the next. And it all starts with a kind of weird question.
It's a strange question, I know. But believe it or not, the answer reveals something incredibly profound about the way your brain is wired and how our modern digital world might be hijacking that very system. By the end of this, you're going to see the connection, and it might just change how you look at your screen. So let's get right to the core idea. First things first, you got to throw out that whole brain as a camera metaphor. It's just not right. A much better way to think about it is that your brain is like a scientist. It's constantly making hypotheses, making little guesses about what's out there in the world, and then using your senses to check its own work. Okay, so the fancy scientific term for this whole idea is predictive processing. And that word right there, negotiation, is everything. See, your perception isn't just a one-way street with information flowing in. It's a constant back and forth, a conversation between your brain's existing ideas about the world and the raw data that's hitting your eyes and ears.
So, how does this negotiation actually work? Well, it's basically a constant loop. First, the high level parts of your brain, like the frontal cortex, make a prediction, a guess. Then, your senses, your eyes, your ears, they go out and collect the raw data. But here's the kicker, and this is what's so incredibly efficient. Your senses don't send all that data back up to the boss. Nope, they only send up the surprises, the prediction errors. It only reports what it didn't expect. The brain just doesn't waste energy processing things it already saw coming.
You know, this whole idea of a predictive brain, it might sound super new and cutting edge, but it actually gives us a fantastic new way to understand a set of psychological ideas that are more than 100 years old, the Gestalt principles. These were some of the first attempts to figure out how our brains create order out of all the chaotic information coming in. And this quote just nails the connection perfectly. What it's saying is that those old Gestalt principles, they're not just weird quirks of our minds. They're basically mental shortcuts, heuristics, that evolution has baked into us over millions of years. They're our brain's best statistical guesses. And predictive coding? Well, that's just the wiring in our brain that actually runs those shortcuts. Okay, let's make this super concrete. Think about the Gestalt idea of closure. You've seen those images, right, where you can recognize a shape even if it has gaps in it? So why does that work? Well, predictive processing explains it perfectly. Your brain has such a powerful, high-confidence model for what a circle should look like that when your eyes see a broken one, your brain basically goes, whoa, that gap looks like a mistake, and your high-level prediction literally fills in the rest for you. You perceive a whole circle that isn't even there. And it's the exact same thing with another one called good continuation. When you see two lines crossing, you see them as two smooth, continuous lines, not four short lines that happen to meet in the middle. Why? Because your brain's experience tells it, hey, smooth, continuous objects are way more likely in the real world. It gives that interpretation really high precision or confidence and just treats any other possibility as basically noise. All right, so this whole prediction system is amazing, right? It works beautifully in the natural world it was built for. But what happens when we take that ancient brain and plug it into our modern digital world? What happens when we feed this prediction machine a constant diet of something totally artificial? Well, this is where it gets really interesting and maybe a little bit worrying. I mean, just think about what you see every day. Endless social feeds serving up the same kind of stuff over and over. Filtered faces that are all smoothed and shaped to conform to the same exact look. Dashboards at work that boil down a messy, complicated reality into a few simple, glowing bars. This is a world of engineered synthetic regularity. And there's a perfect word for what's happening to our brains here, borrowed straight from the world of artificial intelligence. It's called overfitting. Just like an AI model that's only trained on a narrow, repetitive set of data, our brain's internal models of the world can become way too specialized, too rigid, when they're only fed this synthetic diet. So what does this overfitting actually do to us? Well, take the face example. If you spend all day looking at perfectly filtered faces online, the parts of your brain that process faces literally start to change their preference. So when you see a real, unfiltered human face with pores and wrinkles and all the things that make us human, it starts to look like an error to your brain. And because your high-level model is now so confident from all that repetitive input, it doesn't learn or update. It just dismisses the real-world detail as wrong. And look, this whole overfitting problem isn't just about pretty pictures online. It gets way, way more powerful when we're talking about the abstract symbols and metrics that we use to run our lives, from our jobs to the news we read. This is such a powerful and honestly kind of scary example. Imagine you're looking at a dashboard, and that little line for engagement just keeps going up and to the right. Your brain sees that simple, clean signal and it learns to predict, awesome, things are getting better. But what if that engagement is actually just rage and arguments? The simple metric, the model, has started to hide the messy, deteriorating reality it's supposed to be showing you. The model has literally outrun the real world. And there's a name for this condition, for this dangerous end state. It's called hyperreal capture. This is the point where your internal models, your top-down expectations, have been trained so hard by synthetic data that they become incredibly strong. So strong that they don't just argue with reality, they completely override it, erasing any evidence that doesn't fit the prediction. Okay, let's pull all these threads together. What does it actually feel like to be in this state of hyperreal capture? Well, remember that negotiation we talked about at the start? That dialogue between your brain and the world? It stops being a two-way conversation. It becomes a monologue.
Because here's the thing. On a basic biological level, your eyes are still doing their job. The sensory information is still coming in. The brain sees. But the model just refuses to listen. The predictions have become so powerful, so rigid, that they won't be corrected. The negotiation is over. The brain is just shouting at the world, telling it what it expects to see, and it's not hearing anything back.
And what's so wild is how this actually works. It's not that your eyes stop sending the signals. Oh no, your visual cortex is still sending up flares, basically yelling, hey, this doesn't fit the prediction, this is an error. But the higher level parts of your brain, the ones trained by those simple dashboards and perfect social media feeds, they've learned to just turn the volume down on those warnings. They assign those error signals a really low precision, which is basically saying, you're just unreliable noise, I'm ignoring you.
So really, it all boils down to this distinction. On one hand, you have what we can call lawful cues. Think of these as signals from the real, messy, complicated world. They keep your brain's models flexible, soft, and willing to learn. But on the other hand, you have industrial lures. These are the super simplified, repetitive, engineered signals from our screens. And they do the opposite. They make our models hard and brittle, forcing the world to fit into their tiny interface-shaped box. And that, of course, leaves us with a really big question. This predictive system is how we experience everything. So in a world that is just filling up with these industrial lures, these synthetic realities designed to overfit our brains, how do we protect that essential conversation? How do we make sure our own models keep listening to the world instead of just talking to themselves? That's the real question, isn't it?